Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. And yet again, we've got Drago Bosnic. Drago, welcome back. How you doing?
It's great to be here, man. And I can say without any sarcasm, it's it's a long time no see.
Yes, it's been incredibly long. Our not so weekly news updates turned into monthly news updates, turned into quarterly news updates. So now we've got like last month in review as far as Drago's news are concerned. By the way, this is a comedy show. Nothing we say here has anything to do with reality. Also, we've got some memes. We were going to do like an end of year special. And I told Drago to send me a couple of articles, to send me like the best of his 2025 articles, and he sent me like 100. So we're gonna do the end of year special in the next recording. But this is gonna be like the last month in review to see what Drago has written about most recently. And the first thing we're gonna start off with. Why did my preview disappear? Why does this not stay on top? We've got Pentagon and Lockheed Martin throwing blame around as the F-35 fails its 8th audit. By the way, both Drago and I have been under the weather, as one would say. So excuse our muted and nasal sounds. Drago, you want to tell us what's going on here?
Well, I mean, the F-35 being the best fighter jet in the history of mankind, obviously. Jokes aside, as people know, the F-35 regularly fails its audits, and that includes not just the battle readiness and robustness and reliability, but also like technologies that are used on it. And I mean, on paper, it's a magnificent jet. In reality, things are a bit different. Namely, the Pentagon, it seems, is paying money to Lockheed Martin, including bonuses for early delivery, even when the jet comes 2 or 3 months late. So there's no corruption there. Obviously, the Pentagon would never do that. Obviously, so and Lockheed Martin is the most honest and straightforward military-industrial company in the history, so they never engage in such stuff. I mean, they never would, they never have, they never will, right? And the F-35 is at the center of all this honesty and transparency regarding regarding the Pentagon's procurement strategy. So, I mean, I often say I'm completely bamboozled by what I see when it comes to the F-35. Like, you would expect this jet to really be good for the 1.7 trillion that they're paying for it. But in essence, it turns out that it's actually one of the worst jets in the U.S. history. And I think I sent you, I'm not sure if you can see that. I sent you some images.
You sent a bunch of pictures. I got them queued here. I was just waiting for you to tell me. So this is
what we see here.
What is this?
So that's the F-35C. That's the carrier variant that's used by the U.S. Navy, and it's next to the FA-18EF Super Hornet. So just for comparison's sake, the F-35C was inducted into service in 2019. So the oldest F-35 there is only 6 years old, or is going to be 7 next year. And those Super Hornets next to it are usually between 25 and 30 years old. So, I mean, you don't need to be an expert to see the difference. The F-35s are already rusting away, while the Super Hornets look pretty good to me. And recently, the U.S. Navy introduced the AIM-174B, which is their only long-range air-to-air missile, which is essentially like an adapted version of the SM-6, just for the air-to-air role and anti-ship role. Supposedly, I don't think there's any proof for that for the time being. So It's incredible. Like you can find a bunch of images of F-35s rusting
This is just
away.
camouflage, right? This like brown color and like it's like
Yeah,
so it blends
yeah.
in, right?
Blends in very, very well. I mean, if you are fighting a bunch of people who like to take shit all the time, maybe it's going to blend in perfectly. So, um, I mean, like seriously, like look at that. Like, can you imagine like a 5-year-old jet being like that? And by the way, for those who don't know, the main selling point of the F-35 is its so-called stealth. Now, imagine the RAM, the radar absorbent material rusting away. What does that leave you with? Is the jet going to be stealth when there's rust instead of the RAM material?
I
I
think
mean,
I think it's the RAM prices that have gotten to them.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, maybe maybe it has to do with the, yeah, as you said, the RAM prices that have gone up. Maybe that's the reason. Who knows?
I don't
They're
know.
trying to get.
It looks like a paint problem to me. I think if they just use different paint, is that a solution?
Well, I mean, they can use paint, but the thing is, like, you can't use just any paint. You need like a very, very expensive RAM coating that you have to put all the time in order to maintain stealth. Without that, the jet becomes like any other jet. The problem is because you don't have the external hard points, or unless you install them separately, you actually carry less weapons. So in any case, the 30-year-old Super Hornet is actually better than the F-35. And the thing is, for the price of a single F-35, you can get like 2, maybe even 3 Super Hornets. So in essence, as I said, we go back to transparency and the total lack of corruption at the Pentagon.
Let's move along swiftly to some
Yep.
older articles that you wrote earlier in December. Our favorite topic, or one of our favorites over the years, the neo-Nazi junta, as they're called. Um, the thing about telling lies is you have to keep track of all of them. And then you have to be careful
Yep.
not to say things that are going to cancel out your earlier lies. You want to tell us what's
Yep.
going on? By the way, if you can turn down your volume a little bit, it would be excellent because I'm getting some echo
Oh,
here.
sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. But
Is it?
yeah, tell us about this Kinjal propaganda.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, when you're lying all the time, you have to keep track of those things. And there are crazy people like myself who do keep track of those things. So, in essence, I've been following everything that the Kiev regime has been saying, especially their military. And a lot of the stuff that they keep saying makes no freaking sense at all. So it often cancels out what they previously said. And back in early December, this was released on December 2nd, obviously. So they were saying that they shot down 452 Russian targets, including Russian drones and cruise missiles, and also 2 Kinjals. Now that would mean that their interception rate against the Kinjals is 50%, right? I mean, if there are 2 Kinjals and you shoot down 1, that's 50%. However, the issue is one of their generals, specifically a guy named Philip Romanenko, said that they can't do it. He said that they cannot shoot down the Kinjals, the KH-22s, KH-32s. He said it's very difficult to shoot down the Iskanders and so on. So, I mean, who the hell is lying there? And why is it the Kiev regime? And I mean, it's so interesting. Like they claim that 452 targets have been shot down. So that would put the efficiency of their air defenses at over 80%. Now, another issue with that is that we keep seeing these hundreds of videos of Russian targets hitting, of Russian drones and cruise missiles hitting targets all across NATO-occupied Ukraine. So, I mean, once again, what's happening here, and do they actually count the buildings and air defense systems and other stuff as interceptions? I mean, the Patriots can intercept Russian cruise missiles and drones, with themselves, right? With the launchers and other stuff after they get hit, I suppose.
They can
So,
act as very good targets for all
yep,
kinds of long-range ballistics. Moving along to people who want to play
yep.
the target game. How should Russia react to NATO's preemptive strikes threat? Preemptive strikes? Who's this guy? And what is he? What is he
Um,
threatening?
well, that's the interesting thing. That guy is an Italian admiral. So what he
Time
does
out,
is what
time
he
out.
said.
What's an admiral? Like the definition of an admiral?
Admiral is like a general for the Navy, essentially.
And is there
So
like a minimum requirement of tonnage of ships that you have to be an admiral, or can I be an admiral even though I don't have a navy? Um,
yeah, pretty much. Well, that's another topic specifically for the UK. But
the Italians have a navy. How many ships do they have?
well, I mean, they have a pretty respectable navy. It's not really like it couldn't take on Russia or some other country that's
Could it
like
take
really
on
really
North
powerful.
Korea?
But well, I presume they could.
Anyway, I'll let you go on with this article. Go on. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is, like, they've been threatening Russia with a strategic defeat, and by strategic defeat, I mean like these what they call limited strikes on Russia, which would be defensive, and that's the incredible thing. They think that they can attack Russia and just call it defensive, and Russia is not going to do anything about it, right? According to this logic. The problem is Russia said, well, we're not going to do that. And just this actually came just several days after Russia itself published a new updated, defense doctrine, which states that Russia would use all sorts of weapons in case it's attacked, and it would defend itself. So this guy, I mean, I don't know what he's threatening with, because he's not really the commanding officer of the entire NATO in Europe, and he doesn't have the authority to, launch, I don't know, a large-scale strike on Russia. And also, there are these very interesting things called hypersonic missiles that Russia has in abundance that could be used to pretty much obliterate anything
I'm just
up
gonna
to
be
2,000
racist.
kilometers.
I'm just gonna be racist and get it over with. Just look at his face, man. Just his face is enough to whoa. Like I'm sure when the news
It's
came
like
up,
he belongs to
the
World
Russians,
War One, man.
the Russians looked up who's this guy, and they got this image, and then they were just like, okay, never mind. Anyway, Putin spells it out for NATO. Oh, this is the one that like Poland and everybody else didn't understand, was lost in translation. If you want war, we will gladly fight you. Got translated into, we want to fight you because we want war.
Well, I mean, the title says it all. Putin said what we've been saying. I think we mentioned that like 100 times in these episodes we do on Working Brother. Putin said it's going to be gloves off, essentially, like just to shorten the entire thing. He said it's going to be gloves off in case of a war between Russia and NATO in Europe, because Russia will not be fighting with one hand tied and even leg tied behind its back, because when fighting the Ukrainians, the Russians realize they're just fighting brainwashed Russians. So they don't want to destroy them entirely. Considerations will not be there if there's a war between NATO and Russia. So in essence, if they want to fight Russia, it's going to be very ugly, and the Russians will not hold back. And the most interesting thing Putin said, there will be no one left to negotiate with. So, Putin rarely says such things, but when he does, you better listen.
This is a comedy show. So I just got to remind everybody that nothing we say here has anything to do with reality. We're just talking about fun little things that happened, and Drago wrote some articles about them. Um, Russia poised for strategic win regardless of peace talks outcome. I think we covered that like 2.5 years ago. I'll leave a link somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, in a strategic sense, of course, that's true. But in this case, I maybe I should have said like for an operational win, because this was specifically about several of these cauldrons that the Russians have made in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, actually, where about 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers were trapped. So essentially, the
I
Russians
think you meant.
just, you know,
I think you meant to say Western Russia.
yeah, Western
Um,
Russia, pretty much. Well, I mean, like in all seriousness, the Russians have been, you know, they've been conquering all these cities. Of course, they've been losing forward, as our friend the florist would say. They've been losing forward for the last, now it's going to be 4 years soon. So,
hmm.
yeah, the Ukrainians are winning backwards, obviously, and then they can
And
negotiate and they can set conditions, like you know,
if nothing else,
Zelensky said.
the unity of their government and military structure is unquestionable, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. This is probably the most interesting story of all these that we've covered and we'll cover. So the interesting thing is, there's this like very luxurious area of Kiev where, you know, millionaires and oligarchs and these other guys, they want to set up shop, you know, like open all sorts of luxurious residential areas or whatever, you know, just to sell all the expensive real estate. And some of the real estate is actually being used by the Kiev regime forces. And the thing is, those forces are not very united. You have the GOR, which is the military intelligence. You have the SPU, which is the civilian intelligence, and you have various, you know, units, and they want to use, you know, certain public areas and public spaces for training. And I'm not going to mention the name of the guy, I don't want to get sued or something, but there's this very interesting Ukrainian oligarch who actually coveted this land, you know, before the war, or before the SMO, actually, to be specific. And he wanted to buy it. However, as soon as the SMO started, the area that he wanted to buy, which is like a sanatorium of some kind, it was impounded, or let's say taken control of, by the SPU. And then the GOR wanted to go there, you know, and retake it and take, or actually take it for itself and do the training for themselves. So the SBU and the GOR were sparring about, you know, who's going to take control of this thing. And when the GOR finally took control, and there was like almost like a shootout. Actually, there was a shootout between them as to who's going to take control. And guess who was behind it? Well, the oligarch billionaire who wanted to, you know, take over the area. What he was planning to do, he wanted all the Ukrainian media to talk about this, you know, to specifically mention this place, so the Russians would fire an Iskander and obliterate both of these groups, so that this guy could then move in and build his residential area. So there you go. There's no corruption in Ukraine at all, and billionaires are not using the Russian military to, you know, get rid of the, well, other factions that are preventing them from making money. So for details, whoever is interested in details, I suggest you read the article, but that's pretty
I'm
much the
just
gist
getting
of it.
images of the Riviera in Gaza.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much. It's almost like the same people are organizing both of these things, but I would be a conspiracy theorist to say that.
it's a comedy show. We don't say serious things anyway.
Yeah,
By the way, did you hear that Dave Chappelle thing right at the end? That was hilarious.
yeah.
We don't get our $7,000 checks here. We don't get any checks. We're supported by you. Only you support me. Let me do this. Guest plus me. Should I go full screen? It's rare. Let's go full screen. Thank you for your donations. Everybody who's bought me a coffee recently, you fuel the show. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't. Well, I'd probably still do this, but yeah, I'm not eligible for monetization. So you can buy me a coffee, or you can join the Patreon if you so feel like it. Now that that is out of the way, thank you for being here. Let's continue with more news from China. China.
Yeah.
Tell us about
Well,
China.
you know, the incredible thing is Japan really wants to get nuked twice. I mean, more than twice, obviously. That's the gist of this news article, if you want, if you will. Namely, for some absolutely inexplicable reason, Japan wants to get involved over Taiwan. Like they want to get involved with China over Taiwan. Um, when I say involved, that means fight China over Taiwan. Now, I just want to remind people wouldn't be the first time. Taiwan was Chinese for centuries until it was taken over by the Japanese imperialists back in the 19th century. And of course, when they colonized the area, they weren't so nice to the locals, and they weren't so nice to the locals in mainland China, and they never really, said sorry. I mean, they can't. They didn't even say sorry, let alone anything else like pay reparations and stuff like that. And when I was in China, the videos I saw and the images I saw, well, I mean, for some reason we think the Japanese were better than the Germans. Well, not really. The things you can see there are no less brutal than what the Ustashi did in our area, or what the Germans did in our area, what the Germans did in Russia, and so on in Eastern Europe and Poland. So for some reason, the Japanese have forgotten about this, but the Chinese haven't, because like about 31 million Japanese were, the Chinese were killed by the Japanese in World War II, according to the Chinese themselves. Like the number goes up to 35 million, but let's say it's 31. And they did that over about 15 years of invasion, essentially. So the interesting thing is, not only that the Japanese haven't apologized, but now they are remilitarizing and saying that Taiwan is of the utmost importance for Japanese security. And I just want to remind people, Taiwan is part of China. And it's part of China because the entire freaking world, like 192 countries, recognize it as such, including Japan and the United States and Australia and the UK and all these other countries that want to fight China over Taiwan. So, like, why do this? Like, they know they can't defeat China, but for some reason they keep trying. So, I guess good luck with that. They're gonna need it.
Guest plus me. All right, I'm trying to sort out my mouse here. It's low on battery. I'm trying to get a cable to charge it, but looks like it won't do that while we're live. And now, let me get on to the next article. Trump. More Trump. National security strategy. Dun, 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 dun. That's that big paper that everyone's talking about, huh? The one that like nobody read, and that isn't written by AI, and is surprisingly not, we want to conquer the whole world, we'll just conquer our neighborhood. Is that the gist of it?
That's the gist of it. You pretty much
you want to give it a little more detail than that?
Well, I can give a little bit more details, but like you said pretty much everything that needs to be said about that. I've read the document. It's 33 pages. Nothing like it's not crazy. Although I've heard people say there are actually about 50 pages, but most of those have been redacted. Anyway, really, it's true. Trump said that Europe is civilizationally dead, which I mean, it's not so far from true, right? And he said that he's not going to defend it, And the most interesting thing is they have reformed their command structure, and that's another article that we're going to talk about very soon. So, in essence, they are deprioritizing Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, and focusing on the Western Hemisphere. Good news for Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and all these other non-democratic nations, right? And essentially, the U.S. has proclaimed everything from the Arctic to the Antarctic its backyard. Well, I guess a pretty big backyard, if you ask me. I mean, again, as you said, it's actually smaller than the entire fucking planet, which is, I guess, some kind of progress when it comes to America. So, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what was said in this article.
Could be worse. That's what I heard.
Could be worse. Yeah.
You used to be a lot worse. Let's see here. Can new U.S. military bill narrow its high-tech gap with Russia and China? Only in the metaverse with their AI acquisitions. Basically, is my take.
Well, you're not wrong. I can say that much. So the interesting thing is like the defense spending bill, or as Trump himself would say, war spending bill, because it's no longer the Department of Defense. They're focusing on all the things that they are way behind in regards to China and Russia. So they need this tiny little budget of $892.6 billion, or almost $1 trillion if you really, count all the things that you don't see, or more than $1 trillion if you count all the things that you definitely don't see, but assume are there. So they want to focus on ABM systems and like the Golden Dome, which of course is so great. It works perfectly well against Russian and Chinese hypersonic missiles because obviously the Russians and the Chinese stole that from from America. America doesn't have them because it was all on one USB stick, but Trump is working on returning that one USB stick. Anyway, they want to invest billions of dollars, or actually tens of billions of dollars, into hypersonic weapons because the ones that they wasted their money on so far have been completely useless. So they need another $150 billion just to develop hypersonic weapons, AI, quantum technologies, and stuff like that. But the most interesting thing to me is they said, essentially, they admitted that all the pompous announcements that they're going to get hypersonic weapons in the last 5 years were total BS, as I pointed out. Like, I've been writing about it for 6 or 7 years. Some people call me crazy when I said that they won't have hypersonic weapons until the 2030s. And that was like back in 2017 or 18. People said, no way, America is like way ahead of everyone else. Well, guess what? Even Iran and North Korea overtook the United States in hypersonic weapons. And this like strategic embarrassment somehow needs to be ameliorated, and the only way to do it is to pour more money over programs which have failed so far, despite wasting hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yemen and the Houthis. That's all I got to say on
that. Oh yeah. Let's not forget about those guys.
India refuses to budge on F-35 despite further deepens defense ties with Russia. Oh, as in. They saw the Rusty pictures as well? They didn't like the camo?
Yep. They already knew about all that. Like it's crazy, the U.S. has been like trying to bait India into buying the F-35 for years. And the Indians, for some crazy reason, don't want to do it. I don't know why. I mean, I really don't know. Are they like uneducated? Or do they not know how great the American technology is? Obviously, jokes aside, the Indians are perfectly aware that when you buy the F-35, it's not just that you're getting a shitty jet. You're also getting a jet that's not really yours, because you see, when they give you when they deliver the jet, you don't really control the software. So it's an interesting, very, very interesting concept. It's almost like you have the seat heaters in your car, and you have to pay for subscription for that, right? Well, the F-35 works pretty much like that, just on steroids. And like, you need to get a code every, or do whatever the hell you want to do with the planes that you paid for, that you gave hundreds of millions of dollars for each plane. So in essence, the Indians couldn't do anything with those planes, and the planes constantly send data back to the Pentagon. So India would effectively, delegate much of its sovereignty, military sovereignty, back to the United States. And also the Indians wouldn't be able to integrate their own weapons, and they have a bunch of weapons that they want to integrate, and so on and so on. And then came the Russians and said, well, guys, like, you don't have to do any of this shit. Like, we can give you the Su-57, we can give you the source code, which the Russians already are said that they would do. You can even build the jets in India, which of course is a massive economic boost for India itself.
I heard.
And we're going to help you.
I heard recently that they're also doing a transport plane partnership. The Indians and the Russians. They're going to be building planes together. From what I understand, both in Russia and China, right? And India.
And India. And you mentioned China. I mean, it was like a slip of a tongue, but actually they're also doing the same with China. So the Russians are working with both countries in that regard, like in various advanced weapons systems and programs. But the thing is, like, the most important thing for India is the Russians are ready to give like very, very important high tech stuff that very, very few countries and like no other country would ever give you. And that's the source code for the Su-57. Of course, the Russians are going to keep some of the systems for themselves. Like, they're not going to give absolutely everything, but it's far more than what Americans would ever give them. And the most important thing for India, you can integrate Indian weapons on the Su-57, which means you have independence. Like, you don't have to rely on Russia to send you weapons. And if you buy the F-35, you have to rely on the United States to send you weapons. And like, which country is going to fight India? Well, it's going to be Pakistan for the most part. And Pakistan has very close ties with the United States. So are the United States really going to ditch Pakistan for India? Are they not? Are they like really going to send them weapons and so on while sending weapons to Pakistan as well? So, I mean, it's of course for the U.S. this would be great business. Like, you have two big countries fighting each other. You keep selling weapons and so on. It'll be really great business for the United States, but India realizes that it wouldn't be very good for them. For them, especially not in the long run.
Let's circle back, as we like to say in the online sphere, to Europe and Mark Rutte.
Yeah.
So is it Russia that really wants another world war? It obviously is.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the evil Putin. He got up on the wrong leg, and he's sick. Also, you know how he shakes his hand all the time and shakes hands with ghosts and stuff. Oh wait, that's another guy. So, I mean, really, like, jokes aside. Like, people can read the article if they really want the details, but the gist of it is we keep hearing that Russia is the one that wants war, right? Well, I mean, these are the same people who keep saying that Russia is weak, it cannot defeat Ukraine, NATO would defeat Russia in 3 days and so on. But at the same time, these people are saying Russia is going to attack NATO in 3 years because, I mean, if they can't defeat Ukraine, why wouldn't they attack NATO, right? So the logic is there, right? It makes perfect sense to say those things. What I always say is in the West, there's this thing called Russophrenia, which of course we know the origins of those words. So it's no longer Russophobia. Like, Russophobia doesn't cut it anymore. Now it's Russophrenia, where you claim things that make no fucking sense at all. And this is what you base.
We kind of covered this on the last episode, on the recording I did with Malic a couple of days ago. I found the meme. It's actually Schrodinger's Ukraine will survive either way, but needs America to stay engaged to protect Schrodinger's EU, which can fund and arm Ukraine but can't defend itself and will be overrun by Schrodinger's Russia, getting its ass handed to it in Ukraine, but will overrun Europe because Schrodinger's NATO, the most powerful military alliance ever known, but has zero deterrent power. Schrodinger's all the way down. Yeah, I think that basically summarizes that pretty succinctly.
Yeah. I just like to call it Russophrenia. It sounds cooler.
Sounds. Keep forgetting that you're a fellow. That happened in 2025.
Oh yeah. Like, I have to sound more intellectual, right?
British Navy, everybody's favorite cosplay team. The British Navy falls apart while the UK still fantasizes about defeating Russia and China. Tell us the details, Drago.
Oh, like, the details are something very interesting that you mentioned before. The U.S. actually, sorry, not the U.S. The U.K. actually has more admirals than it has warships. So I really don't know where those extra admirals are coming from, but they exist. And now the UK also has 4 Vanguard class nuclear submarines, nuclear powered ballistic missile submarines. Those submarines are the main deterrent or nuclear deterrent force of the UK. There's just one problem. 2 of them are always on their repairs, which means that the UK has only 2, and one of those 2 hasn't actually fired a missile or hasn't executed a successful test launch in the last 9 years. So the last 3 times they tried to fire the Trident II missiles that they have, they all failed. So for some freaking reason, the UK has a national security strategy, a similar document to what the US has, that focuses on not one, but 2 global superpowers, meaning both Russia and China. And it focuses on deterring them, whatever the hell that means, with what exactly? A butter knife or something? Because none of the things that they should have for deterrence actually work. So, like the UK Navy is literally falling apart. Like their most important ships, or in this case, submarines, are not working as intended, but they keep poking the bear and the dragon, mind you. Let's see how that ends up being, and let's see the end result. It will be a very interesting scenario, I would say.
We're going back into the metaverse, where the U.S. Still fantasizes about having hypersonic missiles. Did you see the Golden Fleet and the battleship with the ray gun and the hypersonic missiles that don't exist?
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently, the ray gun is Japanese, by the way.
Just like a very short explanation as to why Trump's Golden Navy makes no freaking sense. Like the more powerful the missiles are, like the smaller the ships should be, because if there's a big capital ship, especially like an aircraft carrier or a battle cruiser, whatever the hell Trump thinks it is, the bigger it is, the juicier the target, right? And the bigger the ship is, like the longer time you need to build it, the more logistics you need, like more other ships to protect it and so on. So like, unless it's really armed with hypersonic missiles like the Russians are doing, it doesn't make sense to build those ships, right? Well, the thing is, as you mentioned, those hypersonic missiles don't exist, so building those ships makes no freaking sense. Especially because the Russians do have hypersonic missiles, especially anti-ship missiles, such as the 3M22 Zircon, which has a range, depending on the configuration, but the range can go up to 2,000 kilometers. So, I mean, there's not even an aircraft that you could launch from an aircraft carrier to destroy the ships that are carrying these missiles. And worse yet, you can launch this thing from a submarine. So like a submarine, which is 2,000 kilometers away, good luck trying to find it after it fires the missile. So now to go back to the Dark Eagle, the Dark Eagle is supposed to be like this common hypersonic body, as it's called in the military. It's supposed to be both in the Navy and in the Army. The problem is it has been delayed 7 or 8 times in the last 5 years. And I've been saying they haven't conducted a single successful launch. The one launch that was supposedly successful, it was a booster test. And for those who don't know, the booster is just the rocket that's supposed to propel the missile that's supposed to work in order to hit the target. The problem is they have never conducted a successful test of the missile itself, only the booster. And of course, I mean, if you want to brag about launching boosters, well, you should go and look for the V2 videos from World War II when the Germans were doing the same thing. So, you're kind of late in the technology if you really think that's relevant. So, in essence, they haven't conducted a single test. And Hegseth, the War Department Secretary, recently said that theoretically the Dark Eagle should go as far as 3,500 kilometers. The key word being theoretically, which means it hasn't really been successfully launched, which is another admission that they've lied before and they haven't conducted any successful launches. In the meantime, the Russians have already inducted the Oreshnik, the space, pretty much like a space weapon that can launch 36 kinetic warheads on any target within the range of 5,500 kilometers. So the Russians have conducted tests, and now they have the serial production, and now they have like 8 to 10, depends on the source, of those Oreshniks deployed in Belarus. And those things can also
36 warhead, 36 independently
like just like to explain how that functions. It has 6 blocks, and each of those blocks has 6 submunitions, and each of those submunitions is a kinetic penetration warhead. Some say it's made of tungsten. We don't know that. Like it's just it's theoretically made of that. We don't know.
I was watching this one show. I can't remember who it was, but they were discussing basically the Oreshnik, and it might have been on Crypto Rich and that Navy guy that he had on. But the point is that they have 36 warheads or reentry vehicles. It's interesting that U.S. Navy carrier fleet group is about 30-ish boats that can be sunk. Speaking of Navy stuff, go on. Sorry.
Just wanted to say one more thing. Some people are saying you can't replace those kinetic warheads with nuclear warheads. I just want to remind people you can put a nuclear warhead into a shell, 152.4 millimeter shell, like a regular shell. So if you think you can't put 36 nuclear weapons on the Oreshnik, try again.
Another thing to look up is the nuclear artillery firing shells. That's always fun footage. They stopped doing that though, supposedly, but they still have them in storage, both the U.S. and the Russians. The Russians. Economic strangulation of Venezuela. Final step before full-scale U.S. aggression. No, probably not, is my short answer, because it's a lot of drama. But before I let you get into that, I'm going to pop this up here. This was sent in by Y. Born too late to be a privateer, born too early to be a privateer, born just in time to be a privateer. Americans are looking forward to legal pirating bounties being put on random ships.
There's another article about piracy, or in this case, privateers, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, when I said full-scale aggression, I don't mean like the U.S. is going to send 300,000 soldiers to disembark and take over Venezuela. That will be a disaster for the U.S. obviously, because Venezuela is like a combination of Afghanistan and Vietnam. So it's like a mountainous jungle, and it's a total disaster to fight a country like that, even if it didn't have all the weapons that the Russians provided. So in essence, when I say full-scale aggression, I mean the U.S. would probably launch limited, we say limited, but actually it would be like a full-scale attack, which would involve thousands or hundreds, at least hundreds of cruise missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Venezuelans have the air defenses to shoot down many of those, but they don't have enough to shoot down, as much as the United States can produce and fire at Venezuela. So what the U.S. would want to do is it would pretty much target whatever is left of the Venezuelan economy, especially its industry, oil industry specifically. So this would be a disaster for Venezuela. And when combined with the naval blockade, Venezuela would be in for a rough ride, because Venezuela's geography doesn't allow resupply from other countries in the region. Specifically, there's an issue with geography, but not just geography. There's also geopolitics, where Colombia is not exactly the friendliest country to Venezuela. Unfortunately, not even Brazil, and not to say nothing about Guyana, which is pretty much like a puppet state of the West. So Venezuela's geography and geopolitics is really complicated, And I mean, I commend their spirit, and determination to fight. And I really believe they can prevail. But there could be a lot of damage to their economy and the society, which has been pretty much under siege for the last several decades.
Yeah, I don't think anything kinetic's gonna happen. Like, I think it's
Let's
all
hope.
just a bit of what's it called? Um, just theater for the masses, just
Yeah.
getting everybody excited for the markets. And the whole XF theory on we can't provide air cover for Netanyahu in the Middle East if our ships are not there and they're all attacking Colombia while taking over Greenland. Is like, I think it's a legitimate point. It's like, most of these ships have spent their last like 15 years cruising in the Middle East and protecting Israel. And now that they've seen that they can't even do that against the Houthis, let alone the Iranians, it's best to go back into their own backyard pond, swamp.
Well,
Is that the
but they
swamp
should
that he
try their
wanted
luck.
to clear out? Maybe that's the swamp that he wanted to clear out.
Well, they should try their luck with Russia. I heard that they really are bad in the Navy,
I heard that the Chinese also have very bad ships. Pentagon deprioritizes Europe and Middle East, focuses on Western Hemisphere. This is kind of what we just covered.
Yeah. One of the things we covered, like it's so interesting, when you read the documents and then when you see how the Pentagon is reacting. Like the Pentagon is saying, I mean, we don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just saying what I read in their documents, and I have no better, like source to analyze than this. They've reduced the number of commands, strategic commands, from 11 to 8. And there are indicators that they're going to reduce them further to 6, which would mean like halving the number of strategic commands. And they're focusing on the Western Hemisphere and China, specifically they say Asia Pacific, but we know it's China. And they are reducing the importance of the Eurocom, which is the European Command, the AFRICOM, which is the African Command, and of course the CENTCOM, which is the Central Command, which is responsible for the Middle East. And the interesting thing is the CENTCOM is returning back to the U.S. soil, which means they really are deprioritizing the Middle East. So, I've been thinking about this. It makes sense only if the U.S. focuses on China, because they realize if they're going to fight Russia, if they're going to fight Iran and all these other like strong countries in the West Asia, then they're going to spend most of their forces or whatever is left and resources fighting Russia and those countries, and that's going to weaken them against China. And in the meantime, China is growing in strength. So the U.S. realizes it will be a perfect thing if we could push Europe against Russia and have this, another European war, which is going to destroy both Russia and Europe. That's at least what they hope to achieve. And while that's happening, they're focusing on China, on this so-called China containment strategy. And I think this is what the U.S. is trying to do. And of course, they need to remove most of their resources from the Middle East and Europe and pretty much send them to the Western Hemisphere and the Asia Pacific to achieve this. And of course, the time is running out. Like the U.S. cannot wait any longer, or at least that's how they see it. They cannot wait any longer to allow China to develop without unimpeded, and because if China continues to develop unimpeded, the U.S. believes that China is going to become aggressive. I don't think that's going to happen, because the Chinese are not like that. Like the Chinese, despite all the propaganda against China and so on, the Chinese are not arrogant. They're not aggressive. They're a mercantilistic civilization that just wants to do business. They want to dominate in the business, but of course you can negotiate about that. And they don't have like 800 bases which are going to be used to force you to do whatever the hell the Chinese economy wants. So they are forced to negotiate.
They don't have
even if
800 bases yet. They have 800 drone factories that can produce 800 drone like swarms that can make you do whatever
Per
you
minute.
want.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, like empirically and historically, we have no reason to think China would do that because back in the 14th century, they had the largest fleet in the world. They could have colonized everything from Australia to Alaska, but they didn't. Like they didn't even like go for Indonesia or something or the Philippines. They could have done it, but they chose not to, and they could have done that again in the 18th century. They didn't do it, and they even like pretty much hunkered down after the UK attacked them during the Opium Wars. So like we have no and like in the last 45 years, like if we don't count the short war between Vietnam and China, they haven't like waged a war in 70 years. And they don't really have the experience to wage wars. So I don't think they would do anything.
Speaking of deterrence, Oreshnik deployed to deter
Yep.
NATO aggression in Eastern Europe. You said how many? 6 of them? Battalions? 6 batteries? What are they
Eight
called?
to 10.
8 to 10.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's what they said. Like several of the military sources I talked to said 8 to 10 of these have been deployed to Belarus. Obviously, we have no idea where they are. They've hidden them very well. And I just want to say this is nothing new because back in the 80s, the Soviet Union had, wait for it, 500 of SS-20s, which they call the RSD-10 Pioneer, which is pretty much a similar weapon. The only difference is every single Pioneer was able to carry no more than 3 warheads, and the Oreshnik has 36. So actually, strategically speaking, with 10 Oreshniks, you can do what you couldn't do with 100 Pioneers. So essentially, this is going to ensure Belarus's security for the next 50 years at the very least, because whoever is crazy enough to attack Belarus is going to get obliterated, whether that's kinetically or just with nuclear weapons, whatever Belarus chooses to do to you. If you attack Belarus, good luck with that.
We've got another 3 articles of this December news roundup. EU,
Yep.
NATO next generation fighter program can't even leave the drawing board. Okay, I was expecting the sentence to finish with can't even leave the ground, but can't even leave the drawing board sounds more apropos.
Yeah, well, I mean, this like thing, I almost feel sorry for it. If I didn't know who would use it and for what, I would feel sorry for it. In this case, I don't, and it's even great. So there's this program that they call the Future Combat Air System, the FCAS, which is supposed to be like a 6th generation fighter program between France, Germany, Spain, and Italy. The problem is, of course, they can't figure out who's going to be in charge. And also, the UK was part of the program, but they gave up on it, and they started a new program, which I forgot the name of. Let me just check the name of that damn thing. Oh yeah, there it is. JCAP, Global Combat Air Program, which includes the UK, Italy, and Japan. They're trying to get Japan in, but Japan doesn't seem very interested. So the Europeans now have two let's say consecutive programs, simultaneous programs that are running, and none of those have managed to produce a single working prototype. And the worst thing is they can't even, as I said, they can't even make the decision on what exactly this jet is going to do. The French want to build something multi-role like the Rafale. The rest of the Europeans want interceptors and air superiority fighters with a secondary strike capability, and of course that's unacceptable to the French. And pretty much, for those who don't know, the Rafale and the Eurofighter were once part of the same program, and that same program fell apart in the 80s. Which gave birth to both those jets, which of course went their very, very different ways, with the Rafale being multi-role and the Eurofighter being air superiority and interception. So the thing is, they said even in the best case scenario, even if they could figure it out, even if they could like decide what to do with it. In the best case scenario, they would have the first flights at some time in the 2050s. Now, for reference, the Chinese are already flying like 3 or 4 sixth generation fighters, prototypes for the time being, but they're flying them. And the US still hasn't flown its own. So, in essence, they would be 3 decades behind the Chinese. So by the time they build this thing, the Chinese will have like the 7th or maybe even 8th generation fighters. So yeah, as I said many times, good luck with that.
This is a comedy show, so we've been really low on memes. This one was sent in by Vex, I believe, as a how can I say reaction to what's going on with the Croatians getting new tanks. Also, Vucic told them that they're very good tanks, so there's that Kletva thing going on. The Vucic curse. We're waiting for something to happen to the Croatian tanks. But yeah, I thought I'd break up some of the news for everybody who stuck around 55 minutes into this talk. Drago, shall we continue with the last couple of things we've got here?
Yep.
U.S. Navy effectively becomes a tool of modern piracy. When did that become news?
Yeah, that's like several people told me that, so I realized I probably made a mistake with the title, because the U.S. Navy has always been a tool of piracy, not modern piracy, but since its inception. I think the interesting thing about the U.S. Navy, it's actually older than the United States itself. So
the Marines,
that would mean,
Marines are, the Marines are older than the U.S.
Yeah, and of course, like they've always like engaged in piracy, and it's so interesting. Like the language that they use when they do piracy, it's so interesting. They say impounded, seized, and so on and so on. Like, I mean, how is it any different from the Somali pirates? What the U.S. is doing? Like, how is it any different? Like the Somali pirates, they send their like boats. They board the ships and they take them away, and then they just take whatever the hell they want and bring them to Somalia. And then Trump himself said it, like during one of the recent interviews. He said, "We don't know what we're gonna do with the oil. It's our oil now. We're gonna either put it in the strategic,
probably gonna
reserves,
take it." Yeah, we're probably going to take it, he said. But the funny thing is that that tanker that he was talking about, like I think that was the first one that they seized when he came out with that statement. In the end, it turned out, or apparently at least the news that I saw, is that the tanker was empty when they seized it. Like it had no oil. The second one had oil, but the first one had no oil on it, supposedly.
And like the third one was oil for China. So like it's not just about like, taking away oil from Venezuela. It's about taking the oil that another country paid, and in this case, that's China. So what's that gonna do? Well, the Chinese will at some point either have to sue the U.S. or send their own ships to escort the tankers that are moving to China. So
don't the Chinese print or like have basically half of the U.S. bonds in existence? Aren't they like selling them like crazy?
Yeah, they've been trying to get rid of them pretty much.
Yeah, so I think this could be just like Trump being like, sell more.
Well, if they do, a lot of the dollar is going to be in a lot of trouble. So
because it's in such good standing right now. We can compare it to the euro to get a good idea of its high standing. Pandora's box opened as Pentagon's AI-controlled kill chain goes online. Palantir is good. They only sometimes decide on who dies in Palestine.
Well, pretty much, yeah. Like there's such great people. I mean, for those who are interested, they should look up the details and so on. They can read about it. But I just want to say, it's incredible how the U.S. is now bragging about having the entire civilian sector, work with the Pentagon to what they say speed up the kill chain, which is now going to be controlled by the AI. So, it's very interesting. We see Musk and one of his companies, specifically the XAI, is going to be the most important contractor in this. So we see Musk blabbering his worries, supposed worries about the AI being more dangerous than nuclear weapons. And here he is working with the Pentagon to weaponize the AI. Meanwhile, BRICS is talking about controlling the AI and impeding the use of AI in weapons. So the BRICS already signed several documents to achieve this. Meanwhile, the US is saying, well, we're going to use it for war. So that's going to open the Pandora's box, because every single country will realize if somebody uses the AI for weapons, they're going to have more effective weapons. So that's going to force other countries to develop their own military AIs. So essentially, like, either we all agree to not weaponize the AI or everybody does it, and it seems to me that the US already made up its mind. And I already mentioned in the article, this wouldn't be the first time Western countries have done this. Every single scientific or technological breakthrough has been used for military purposes. And the US, Western countries, and all these other, Western countries in general, were almost always the first one to do it. And in the article, I mentioned that the Chinese had gunpowder, back in the 9th century, for those who don't know. So they could have built these weapons in the 9th century. They did build some weapons, but they were nowhere near as effective as those built in Europe, in Western Europe specifically, in the late 13th and early 14th century. And since then, gunpowder has been used to build colonial empires. So in essence,
it just proves, man, that the Chinese couldn't do it until the white man showed up and showed them, like the Anglo-Saxons showed them how to be more advanced. That it's the same as the hypersonic weapons that you were saying. It's all stolen. Yeah. It's all stolen from the Americans,
from the U.S. obviously. Yeah.
Clear as day. We've gone over the hour officially. I don't like to post-produce these that are longer than an hour because it gets annoying. Here's the last meme for today. You might have seen this before, but now it comes with oh shit, the battle was today. That's what he was saying. The music has started.
Joe Biden leading the U.S. Army in the battle.
Drago, good to have you back. It's been a while. We'll be right back after I refresh my coffee. Somebody may have gotten me a coffee, and then I'll have a new coffee. Thanks to everyone who's gotten me coffees. Thanks to the patrons. Thanks to everyone who stuck around to the end. Drago, thank you again. I'll see you soon. Everybody, peace out.
See you soon.
Ciao.